Hey y'all, it's Sarah, the wine-loving bookworm, back with another book review on your Sunday. I know I've been MIA, I think for the last 2 weeks, but we've been trying to put our house on the market and look for a new house, so it's been super stressful and I just haven't been able to really get a whole bunch of reading done. But I'm back. I have a book club on Thursday, so that is the book that I'm going to review for you guys tonight. First, let's start with the wine. I love BOGOs at Publix, and this was a BOGO at Publix, and it's a Pinot Noir. It's called Max. I'm not sure where it's from. From Chile. That's different. I didn't even see that. So, Pinot Noir called Max from Chile. So, let's give it a shot. That's good. Hold on, one more time. It's pretty good. I took the first sip and I thought it had a little bit of a bite. And it might. A little bit. I can actually see it like coating the glass. That sometimes means it's a pretty good wine, right? Maybe? I don't know. Not much of a wine connoisseur, but. So yeah, that's pretty good for BOGO. I think it was $16.99, but two of them for $16.99, so that's not bad. I kind of had a different setup tonight. You might have noticed because we're moving, so we had to clean out this whole room, and we cleaned out a bunch of stuff out of here. So I still have bookcases behind me, but until we get settled in our new place, this will kind of be my setup for now. Okay, so the book. I read A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. And again, this is my book club book, so I would never have picked this book up. I mean, it sounds like ridiculously boring to me when you read the back. But I actually really enjoyed it. So another situation where you literally can't judge a book by its cover, right? So Amor Towles, it's historical fiction. Amor Towles is an American novelist. He wrote The Rules of Civility. I think I've heard of that, but I've never read it or knew anybody that read it. He was born in Boston. He went to Yale and he got his master's at Stanford, so he's super smart. He spent 11 years as an investment professional. That's all they said, so I'm not sure what that means. In New York City, banker, stockbroker, something like that. I couldn't find that this book won any awards, but they did say it's going to become a movie soon, which would be interesting as a movie. I'm not sure how they'll do that, but okay, so we'll get to it. The basic outline. It's during the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. Count Alexander Rostov is deemed an unrepentant aristocrat. When the Bolsheviks revolted, it was to turn over the aristocracy, the czars, things like that, and bring in the communist state, and that kind of ushered in the Russian communist state. So he was an aristocrat, and so they were kind of going around basically killing all the aristocrats. My family a lot of them are from Russia on my dad's side, and one of my great-grandmothers or whatever worked for one of the last czars and had to flee because they were just going around killing everybody. So I kind of have a personal connection to this. They didn't kill him because he had written a poem, or so they thought. It's actually written by someone else. And it was like a beloved poem. So they spared his life, but they sentenced him to having like house arrest at the Metropole Hotel in Moscow. And this guy's an aristocrat. He's used to, the finer things in life. He had a suite at the Metropole Hotel, which they've actually kicked him out of, and they made him stay in like these attic rooms, which weren't really up to snuff for him, but he dealt with it. But basically, this guy is going to the nice restaurant every night, drinking at the bar, getting his hair done, or hair trimmed, whatever. So yes, he doesn't have the freedom to leave the hotel. He doesn't have the freedom to, go to a play or a concert or anything. But is this that far of a stretch for him? I mean, he's not in jail. He's in a freaking, like, Ritz-Carlton is that what this hotel is like. So he actually ends up living there for like 30 years. And again, he works as a waiter in the restaurant at one point. He's very cultured. He knows about fine society. He knows about, how to choose a wine with a meal, things like that. Very well read, all that stuff. Because they say gentlemen don't work. They just like sit around and read literature. It's kind of different. You don't really have any sort of reference for that in this day and age. But that's basically what he did because he was aristocracy. it's interesting the way they portrayed what was going on in Russian politics at that time, because the Count was honestly very, I think, unconcerned with what was going on. He just, and I don't, there was some talk in book club of whether he actually knew what was going on or not. I think he did know what was going on. I just don't think he really cared. I mean, he read the newspaper every day, so obviously he knew what was transpiring. I just don't think it really affected him that much. He lived in this little bubble of the hotel and he didn't care. So they kind of let it weave in through other people that he interacted with, or different events, or people that came to the hotel to have conferences and stuff. That's how they kind of got across what was going on in Russian politics at that time. I won't give everything away, but he's eventually entrusted with the care of a young girl, and that kind of changes him. He considers her his daughter, raises her in the hotel till she's old enough to leave, and he sincerely loves her. And I don't know that there was many people he loved in his life besides maybe his sister, who is referred to in the book several times, and he has a picture of her in his room. So the girl Sophia that he raises, he really loves her sincerely and genuinely. Returning home in the book is a big theme. Alexander Rostov, the Count, he was away when the revolution, I think, began, and he came back because he wanted to help his grandmother or something. But he didn't have to come back, and he really should have stayed away because they brought him up on, charges of being rich. I don't know. That's basically what it was, charges of, being a count. But he came back, and then at the end, he had an opportunity to leave, and he came back again. So it's interesting. It's like you can never leave home, something like that. He just always felt the pull of his home country, and he never left. There was a little bit of a discussion in my book club too of whether he was like, kind of this haughty, snooty guy, or whether he was this really nice, sincere, genuine guy. I tend to think he was a mix of the two. I don't think he was a jerk to be a jerk. I don't think he thought of himself generally as better than anybody, but it definitely came off like that because of the way he was raised, the culture, he had, how he'd be like, oh, don't have that wine, have this wine. And it wasn't that he was trying to be a jerk about it. He just really was felt like he was trying to help people, but it did come off as like snobby a lot of the time. So I think he was oblivious a little bit. I think he was a little bit self-involved and a little oblivious, but he did sincerely try to help people. So I don't think he was a jerk at all in that regard. It was a beautifully written book. I mean, it was like lyrics to a song or a poem, that just went on. It was beautifully written. I wouldn't say this is my favorite book in the world. It really wasn't. My mom read it, and she didn't really like it because she felt like nothing ever happened. I think it was a little bit, things happened. It was just more subtle. I mean, obviously he's in a hotel, so there's not a whole bunch that could happen, but things happen. But I just think that it was more subtle. And like I said, I wouldn't say this is my favorite book in the world, but gosh, the writing was just, you got lost in it. It was very beautiful. It was you could just feel like you were right there. And the Metropole is a real place. I didn't look it up, but some people in my book club did. And the way he described it, they said, was just like the pictures. So that was kind of interesting. So the author, even though he was an American writing about Russia, he must have gone to Moscow at some point to get that perspective. So again, I would recommend you pick it up. It's about 460 pages. It was pretty easy read. It takes a little bit to get into it. At first, you're kind of a little bit confused, but once you get into it, I think it holds your attention very well. So pick it up. A Gentleman in Moscow, Amor Towles, and I'm not sure if I'll pick up Rules of Civility yet. I'll have to kind of read what that one's about. So next week, I don't know if you guys have read Molokai by Alan Brennert. Amazing book. If you haven't read it, pick it up. Molokai, Molokai'. Alan Brennert. It's about a leper colony in Hawaii, and I think like the early 1900s. I can't quite recall right now. But they would take anybody that had leprosy and they'd stick them on this island called Molokai, and that's what the book was about. It's such a good book. So I went to the library the other day with a friend, and they had this one called Honolulu by the same guy, Alan Brennert, author of Molokai. So I was like, I just spotted it, and I'm like, I gotta try it. So I'm gonna read it. I actually don't even know what it's about. I think it's about like a mail order bride or something like that. But yeah, I'm gonna give it a shot. So Honolulu will be my pick for this coming up week. So that's all for me tonight. Pick up A Gentleman in Moscow. I think you guys will like it. And what is this, Max Pinot Noir from Chile? It is pretty good. Let's have one more sip of it. Yeah, pretty good. I think you like it. If it's still, I think it's on BOGO at Publix until this Thursday. So maybe think about it. All right, so that's it for me. Until next week. Cheers.